For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Big drop on Wall Street yesterday, as you know, so therefore shares in Asia Pacific actually falling quite dramatically. Hong Kong, Hang Seng led losses down about 3.5%. A huge drop on Wall Street, over 1,000 points last night. A lot of components obviously coming out of China. There's a big slowdown there. Also interest rates going up around the world. So stocks really, as I said, as far as the United States is concerned, let's recap that, pulling back very, very sharply yesterday. Dow Jones, as I said, down about over 1,000 points overnight. Nasdaq 4.99 down. A bit of a tech wreck, really, as they're calling it. Large tech stocks under pressure. Meta Platforms, that's the Facebook parent, down. Amazon down too. Microsoft down. Salesforce, Apple. What can I tell you? All those stocks actually falling down. Etsy and eBay down hugely. I mean, Etsy down 16%, eBay down about 11%. So from all these big corporates, from Estee Lauder to Apple to Starbucks and the rest of them, all suffering because of China's COVID lockdown. And it's quite extraordinary how, because we are all still linked around the world, these losses are actually suffer. Businesses and a number of challenges, and corporate sentiment among S&P 500 sharply down as a result of that. Here's the thing, it's called unretirement. These are older people actually going back to work in the United States. The labour market's so strong there. We'll get those labour figures obviously later on today. Elon Musk, if the Twitter thing actually takes over, will become temporary CEO of Twitter, and his friends and investors have pumped in $7 billion to help him out, so that it's not actually so dependent upon loans against Tesla and so on to take it over. We can go through those, friends, if you have time for it. EU and the ECB, momentum rising there for an interest rate rise in July. That's what they're saying right now to fight inflation. Apparently, their chief economist is open to raising interest rates there. Inflation in the Eurozone 7.5%. As far as the EU is concerned, Hungary is still resistant to facing any plans for the Russian oil embargo. They're saying it's not political, even though Viktor Orban is supposed to have been quite a good friend of Putin's. It's nothing to do with that. What the chief economist there is saying is that basically this is an impossibility. However, its diplomats feel as though they might change their mind slightly if they get some sort of grants for infrastructure. Bank of England, back to the UK, raising interest rates. They see inflation at 10%. Crawling up, then maybe a recession next year. I mean, that's how serious things are actually getting. It's about 10% inflation rates now, so up another 0.5%. Quite tellingly, 3 of the committee members actually wanted to raise rates even more. So things are looking fairly hawkish here. Local elections yesterday, Prime Minister, as you'd expect, coming under pressure from those. Labour, though, not doing as well as people had actually hoped. It's really the Liberal Democrats, sort of centrist party, which has been doing rather well, but still votes to be counted in that. So nobody's no, but obviously any government gets a kicking in local elections, and certainly in the midterms, as local elections as these are. It doesn't give us any idea what's going to happen in a general election, but nevertheless quite a kicking for the Tories. A convenience store, which is a feature of many people's lives, called McColl's, is on the brink of being a bankruptcy, on the brink of failure, and so on. It's looking for somebody to take it over. It's all to do with the cost of living, I suspect, and also maybe something to do with them. But basically, you can take that as a cost of living indicator. And contrary to what we were hearing day before yesterday about the government, their plan now to rein in big tech, the new Digital Markets Unit, the DMU, as it's going to be called, will be looking at where big tech companies are actually trying to starve out opposition to them. And finally, oil prices, well, just moving sideways, really. But really quite a tumultuous week as far as the markets are concerned. And I suspect that will continue, never mind what the US jobs figures say later today. That's the global view.
I mean, what is the UK government doing about 10% inflation, what is it called, inflation rate coming up, and probably a recession coming up, because the people in Britain are becoming poorer by the day. Inflation is creaming up all their disposable income, and at the same time, then the economy is going to have a lull with a recession. What is really happening in the United Kingdom? That's one. Number two will be the case of Hungary. What Hungary says is that they've got just one refinery in Hungary, and their refinery is tuned to only blend or refine Russian oil. So trying to change things for them will be problematic. Is that enough excuse, owing to the fact that it's a world situation?
Hungary is saying very plainly, as it did yesterday, this is nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with its supposed leaning towards Russia. It is a physical impossibility for them to not take Russian oil. That's what they're saying right now. It may well be, as I said to you, that maybe diplomats are hoping that maybe this will turn round if Hungary gets some sort of infrastructure grant from the EU. But at the moment, and this has to be an agreement between all the 27 states in the EU, and Hungary is the one sticking out there at the moment, saying this is nothing to do with our political leaning. This is a physical impossibility. That's what they're saying right now. Of course, there's no such thing as impossibility, and things may well change. Diplomats are hoping that maybe some kind of infrastructure grant may help that. There's still a way to go before the end of the year, before the EU starts to get panicky about this and starts to lay down its terms. But certainly Hungary will come under a great deal of pressure. As far as the UK is concerned, yes, things look pretty grim, don't they? 10% inflation, possibly a recession next year. Nothing to do with the government, really. I mean, again, what can a government do about cost of living? Very, very little indeed. We can explore windfall taxes for the oil companies, but there are all sorts of excuses for that. But even though BP said it would still continue with its investment should there be a windfall tax, but it's not really what the image that the UK would tend to put out and so on. No, the cost of living is something which just has to be borne, and people are actually doing that, and they're changing their shopping habits and so on. As I've been reporting, it's very, very serious indeed. It's not, it looks bad for the summer, but a recession next year looks quite serious. Now, a recession is something, as you know, when two quarters go into decline, so it's measurable from that point of view. But I think people are actually worried about their cost of living, about wages falling back and so on, the kind of normal worries that we just have to contend with. I don't think politicians will promise things, won't do anything at all. It's down to us to learn to survive.
Well, quickly, let's start with the UK. I like the fact that the Bank of England, the Monetary Policy Committee, voting 6-3, didn't sugarcoat the misery that Britain is going through. But how much worse can it get? How deep-rooted is the mystery that is facing Britain at the moment? How much higher can the interest rates go with the plain talk about recession, household pain, and 10% inflation rate by the third quarter? And we've seen, in part, the evidence. Wandsworth is gone. Wandsworth used to be a stronghold of the Tories. Westminster, Labour has won Westminster for the first time since 1974. What are the implications of this? I know you don't like to talk about politics. You said local government elections tend to go that way, but maybe you can make a further comment on that. Now, the second thing, yesterday when we were discussing the bumper profits beyond expectations by British Petroleum, we pointed out that Shell will announce its own profits that Thursday, and Shell has done so. Shell too has exceeded all expectations with about 9.2 billion profits, more than what it made within the first quarter last year. Norway's Equinor has also made a lot of money. Total Energies is also boasting. Now, BP promised 18 billion investment. Shell is also promising about 20 billion in terms of investments in the UK over the next decade. What is the guarantee that these oil companies will meet these commitments? I take the point you made yesterday about volatility and why we should not talk about the windfall tax, but who is going to hold them down to these commitments that they are making?
Well, I mean, actually, if I may, I'd take it further than that. I mean, what they're saying about their investments actually runs in the face of what this present government has been saying about a windfall tax, because the government's saying that if they impose a windfall tax on oil companies, they will not, therefore, continue with their investment. The oil companies say something completely different. There's the BP and both Shell are saying we will continue with our investment. They're promising that whether there's a windfall tax or not. I know what I would do if I were one of those oil companies, but I'm a generous kind of person. But I mean, they will continue. No, I don't think they need to be held to it. It's something that they actually have to do, and that and their shareholders and who are now their stakeholders will want them to do it. I would just say against the windfall tax, the one thing that I actually do, I think they should, no doubt they should be. They have had no physical input into their windfalls at all. It's just happened because of the way that the oil price is going, and it is extremely volatile. However, one argument against a windfall tax is that what it does is it reduces the amount of dividend that these companies pay. And as I'm sure most of your viewers would sympathise with, that if you have any kind of pension fund, if you're looking forward to any kind of pension fund in your old age, a lot of it will be in oil companies, and a lot of it will be dependent upon those dividends actually falling into place. As far as the UK is concerned, yes, I mean, I would just add to what I was saying, that certainly in local elections, not only Westminster has gone to Labour, but also the absolute apogee of what the Conservatives used to want in London, basically is Wandsworth Council. I do not want to take you to Wandsworth. You do not want to go to Wandsworth. Trust me, it's not a very glamorous kind of place, but it actually was a real feather in the cap. It's a flagship borough for the Conservatives, or it was. It's now gone to Labour. However, and these are big howevers, does not reflect the rest of the country, and this is where the important thing. If there are Labour gains in the rest of the country, which there's not been a tremendous shift towards Labour in the rest of the country so far, and again, counting still taking place, I think the Tories will be saying to themselves, phew, thank goodness for that. We knew we were going to get a kicking. Now let's concentrate on what's going to happen in a general election. These are merely local elections. Either the people who, if they're doing their jobs properly, empty your bins and keep your sewage going and all that. That's what they're supposed to do. And it will be a big hit for them, but it won't be a shock for them. I would have expected a kicking in any case for whoever is in power at this kind of stage. It's what happens in midterms. These are the local elections.
I want to go back to Elon Musk getting a little help from his friends, if you like the Beatles, as I do.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it about him that seems to inspire this kind of messianic fervor in his billionaire cohorts? I mean, I don't get it.
All right, here, get this then. What his friends like Larry Ellison and also the investment companies and the private equity companies that want to go with him, and he's raised $7 billion from them, which is not bad going. What they attest to is his brilliance. That's what they say. They say that it doesn't make any sense. They haven't actually stopped, as far as I can tell, to consider how Musk plans to monetize Twitter. They see it as a very, very important, a global social media phenomenon, and they think that his brilliance will take it to even greater heights. That's why they're investing in him. That's what people like this actually do. No, I mean, I'm with you. I don't see what it is, but that's what they're saying this morning. It's his brilliance that's causing that kind of investment to take place.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Although it looks like the Prime Minister also lost Barnett, going back to the local council elections. Maybe that's an indication of worse things to come in the next general elections. I know.
Oh, you label. It's fine. Thank you so much for updates on COVID-19 pandemic. And this one, Maura is here with us. And this one, great to have you.
Good morning. Great to be here, Rufai.
Yeah.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Morning. Well, the global coronavirus caseload has now topped 516 million. And although the Johns Hopkins University is still reporting the deaths from the pandemic to have surged more than 6.24 million. We cannot get that data now. If we can, you see those figures by the Johns Hopkins University. Let me tell you that the WHO, after much delay, because we talked about this about 2 weeks ago, the WHO has finally revised the global death toll from this pandemic. It says there were 14.9 million excess deaths associated with the COVID-19 by the end of 2021. That's nearly 3 times what is currently being reported from around the world. Well, some countries stood out in this revised excess deaths. In Russia, the excess deaths is 3.5 times the official figures being reported. At the moment, Russia is reporting about 300,000 casualties from COVID-19, but the WHO is saying it's 3.5 times more than that. In India, the WHO believes deaths were 10 times what was recorded. It puts the figures in India at 4.7 million, as against the current 521,000 thereabout being reported in India. Most excess deaths were in the Americas, Europe, and Southeast Asia. It also shows excess deaths were higher in men than it was in women. In Africa, a lot of countries had sketchy data. So the team of experts put together by the WHO to revise this death admits that there was a lot of uncertainty about how many truly died from COVID-19 in Africa. The report was delayed due to disputes with the Indian government, and the updated figure includes those who died from other illnesses but could not access treatment because of the lockdown, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, let's take a look at the vaccination figures here in Nigeria. 21.3% of the targeted eligible population in the country have now been partially vaccinated, meaning they've received one of the 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccines they are supposed to get. Meanwhile, 14% have been fully vaccinated. According to the NPHCDA, which is the agency in charge of vaccination in the country, the top 5 performing states at the moment are Nasarawa, Jigawa, Kano, Kaduna, and Kwara State. These states are moving faster than others to vaccinate the 50% target put by the government, 50% to be vaccinated with the coronavirus vaccines. Well, the Africa CDC has urged all those buying COVID-19 vaccines for the continent to place their orders with South Africa's Aspen Pharmaceuticals. Well, Aspen officials had said days ago that it was risking shutting down because it was yet to receive a single order of the vaccine. Well, Aspen had negotiated a license deal to package and sell Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine and distribute it across Africa. It was touted as a trailblazer. Meanwhile, the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. is strictly limiting who can receive the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine due to what it says is a rare but serious blood clot incident. FDA officials said in a statement that they decided to restrict the J&J vaccines after taking another look at data on the risk of the life-threatening blood clots within 2 weeks of vaccinations. It says again, this is rare, but it is happening. Back to you guys.
Okay. Let me go first. Now, WHO saying that, the actual number will be about 15 million deaths that have been recorded. Before now, we've been relying on Johns Hopkins University data. Johns Hopkins University data puts the figure at about 6.2. But there have been other researchers. University of Washington, for example, had before now said, look, this will even be about 18 million, right? Canadian researchers said that in India, the figure of deaths will be over 3 million. Before now, the WHO itself put that figure at about 6.5 million for India. So being counting with regard to actual COVID deaths has been very problematic. But now that the researchers commissioned by the WHO have come up with a range between 13.3 and 16.5 million, and they've now agreed on an aggregate of 14.9. Even that is not certain, because in the data adopted by the WHO in the survey, only half of the countries supplied the data. So we still do not know. But the little that we know so far is that, look, this could help the world prepare for future pandemics, right? It could also be an indication of the need for countries to develop infrastructure. Many of the countries that are captured in this latest data quoted by WHO are countries in the Americas, in the Pacific, and in Asia. About Africa, very little is known, where the rate of vaccination is just about 16%, because many of these deaths are not reported. Many of these deaths do not fall within, what you can capture. So even what the WHO is reporting is limited. And there's also the fear that persons who are living with long COVID, which was one of the stories we looked at yesterday, you don't know the extent of long COVID and how it might affect people and result in deaths. But what is certain, however, is that whereas this is not as bad as the 1918 Spanish flu, which reported over 100 million deaths worldwide, it is still scary that in 21st century, in modern times, with all the facilities that may be available, even in the developed parts of the world, then you still have this high figure, 15 million as reported, which is an estimate and which could grow higher. Now, as for Africa and the Aspen project in South Africa, well, it's very disturbing because last year, you will recall that Aspen, collaborated with J&J, Johnson & Johnson, to produce fill and finish projects. And that, collaboration, which will result in technological know-how and also address the challenge of vaccine inequity in the world, was processed by Strive Masiyiwa, right, who is the African Union ambassador. And then, of course, Aspen began its fill and finish project, but there have been no optics, not from COVAX, not from Gavi, not even from African countries. Many African countries are just relying on, donations that they get from every direction. They don't want to buy, they don't want to pay. They are relying on COVAX and Gavi. Now, the fear, as John Sasong put it, the head of the Africa CDC, is that, look, that Aspen project may die. If there is no market is very important to this vaccination program here in Africa or elsewhere. And the other point, of course, is that it may have implications for other initiatives in Africa. You have the WHO in September 2021 creating hubs, 6 hubs in Africa. That included Nigeria, Tunisia, South Africa, Senegal, now Kenya. All these countries, even if they produce these vaccines, who is going to buy? Because African leaders, they are looking for aid, they are looking for donation. So all this talk about partnership, technological know-how, Moderna is in Mauritius and Seychelles. Egypt is producing with Sinovac. Okay, but if Africans don't like themselves, what do you want the rest of the world to do? If our leaders don't want to provide the vaccines and create a market locally, that local market is important.
I mean, it's so shameful, isn't it? Yeah. But I want to talk briefly, Adeswa, about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and just to stress that the odds are really low. It's 3.23 cases of blood clots out of 1 million doses. It's just that you don't want to be one of those 3.23 cases, and especially the 1 in 1 million of women under 50 who ends up with a fatal case. They actually die from it. But what do? Devil and the deep blue sea. COVID-19 itself gives you blood clots. The vaccines might give you a blood clot. I mean, when is the nightmare going to end, Rufai?
just very sad, very, very sad one. But please still go out there, take the vaccination as much as possible. And speaking on the Aspen Initiative, African countries too must support internally. But you know, there's another question about the money. Where are most of them going to get the money from? Because when you check the line item budget of most African countries, they don't just have the resource for it. I mean, they can't do what Donald Trump did with Operation Warp Speed, that he put about $6 billion down before the research even started. So that's another problem as regards money. But I think a quick solution would be, Africa has vaccine mandates for all the illnesses. Straight off the bat, I know immunization goes on for other things. I think it is time. I know there are logistical deals already signed in place, but if the Aspen Institute and some other institutes can switch to other vaccine mandates to provide vaccines for things like yellow fever and the likes, and still keep the production line working, you know, it will help them a great deal. But we must not allow this initiative die. Because when COVID started, the argument was, oh, Africa doesn't have anything on ground. Now it's got the initiative on ground. Now it's got places for vaccination site working. Then we must be able to keep it up and running as much as possible. And this is where you expect other African bodies like Nepal too to come into it, you know, to help greatly as regards keeping this initiative. Also the Institut Pasteur in Senegal running, and also some other institutes. And apart from this, you know, well-meaning Africans, you know, billionaire Africans too should help a great deal as regards putting some funding aside, you know, for running on things like this. It was a good one that Strive Masiyiwa, you know, of Zimbabwe helped a great deal as regards putting all of this together by building solidarity, but we can only continue that. But the big problem, as it is always the problem of Africa, access to capital. That is why you see that is dying. As regards data, I have always known that there is no way you can get concise empirical data. And kudos to Johns Hopkins for doing a great job thus far. At least they can give us a trajectory of where COVID is going so we can map it all out. Also, another thing we must do on the African continent is we must improve our epidemiology. Because when you look at the logistical interplay of our epidemiology, it still comes from the West. So even some of the data you are getting out of Nigeria, it's still the likes of UN, UNICEF, and the likes that are helping us with those data. When are we going to have government-run agency work effectively as regards, you know, data collection and the like? And that's a big challenge. I mean, if you want to know the data for vaccinated Nigerians today, you will still get a concise data from the likes of UNICEF and the likes, because they are the stalwarts of this data. So I think what we should build is our entire ecosystem and value chain. Epidemiology involves data collection, disease tracing, contact tracing, and the likes. We must be able to build that. You know, it is sort of like the extension work of medical sciences. We must be able to build that across board and help a great deal to also do the hard work as regards medicine. And then we can get there. Take, for instance, I'm just thinking in my head, God knows how many people died under Magufuli in Tanzania from COVID that were never reported. Because at some point, Magufuli said COVID never existed. Thank you, Adesuwa, for your time.
Our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Tundu Rufai and Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. We begin with in Nigeria. The economic think tank, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, has released a 10-point fiscal plan for Nigeria. It's part of their debt management roundtable. The debt management roundtable is an initiative, a joint initiative between the Open Society Initiative for West Africa and the NESG and the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. And the plan looks at fiscal revenue mobilization, expenditure efficiency, and debt sustainability, essentially. Those are the three key points in the plan. I'm waiting to get my hands on it because I haven't reached out to the folks at NESG, and they'll be sending it soon, so looking forward to diving in there. Taiwo Oyedele, who is the chair of the Debt Management Roundtable, he's with PwC. He's talked extensively about debt, says that it's a thorough plan, and he hopes that the government, well, adheres to what is in there, which I think is going to be the main issue, whether or not that plan is adhered to, because there's been a whole lot of plans that have been released, and the issue, of course, is whether or not the government takes it up. We move to Kenya. Kenya's GDP figures for 2021 have been released by their Bureau of Statistics. 7.5% was the figure. I think it contracted by 0.2% in 2020. So quite a rebound quite a rebound for Kenya. I think it was fastest pace in about 11 years. In fact, we can take a look at some of the figures. I think the standout sector was food and accommodation services, which was a reflection of hotels, restaurants, and so on reopening from the lockdowns. 7.5% was the figure. World Bank projected 5% for 2021. IMF predicted 7.6%. Education was the second best sector, but that did pretty well, 21.4%. Kenya recently has said that curriculums need to be updated in order to reflect the fact that children need to code and so on and so forth. So they're one of the first African nations to actually do a curriculum revamp. Inflation averaged about 6.1% for fiscal year 2021. There's an election later this year. There's a few challenges the country is facing. So we'll see how things turn out for 2022, but I believe that as far as the projections for 2022 are concerned, they're a bit revised downwards from this 7.5% figure. Again, base effect is also part of this as well. Still on Kenya, Kenya is heading to the Eurobond market, the capital markets, to raise another Eurobond. They still want to get more funding. I think the target was July, about $1.2, $1.3 billion, despite the fact that rates are going up. So it's a bit of a head scratcher, but I guess desperate times call for desperate measures, to where they're actually going back to the capital markets in the middle of rates going up, and you're seeing what's going on with bond yields across the world. Debt in US dollars is basically getting more and more expensive. The Fed, we talked about the Fed with Michael Wilson. There will be more rate hikes. Things are going to get more expensive. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be pretty expensive. Tanzania, fuel prices in Tanzania have risen to a new high. According to the the Energy and Water Utilities Regulatory Authority, EWURA. They're saying that essentially this is as a result of what we're seeing with oil prices climbing. In fact, I think we got the figures. Yeah, it's like a double-digit growth for petrol. Yes, petrol grew by 10%. $1.30. Well, 3,148 shillings is Tanzanian shillings is the currency there. With $1.36 from $1.23, so 10% growth there. Diesel up by 21%. Kerosene up by 16%. If you want to do the mental math of what $1.36 of petrol is here at either the official rate or parallel market rate, it's scary. It's scary. Uganda is saying that they will not you pay for fuel subsidies. they were debating it for a while, and they've completely ruled it out because of where prices are going. So, but their neighbors in Kenya, they're still doing it. Finally, I don't know if you guys saw. Have you guys updated your WhatsApp? So there's a new WhatsApp. Yeah, there's a new WhatsApp update. If you go to the iOS store or Android store, you can update it. But admins have been giving more power. This is a screenshot. Tech Cabal was a bit bothered about this. As an admin, you are deleting someone else's message. For everyone in this chat, they will see that you deleted the message. So I've always thought of WhatsApp groups as mini democracies, especially housing estates, right? Where the housing authorities are like the leadership, states, residents are the polity, their tax, their service charges. And this whole conversation around corporate platforms like Twitter, deleting Donald Trump, deleting President Buhari's tweets. And for WhatsApp, as an admin, you now have the power to delete someone else's message, that's as opposed to right. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Editorial powers.
Yeah, but if you form a group, are you not in charge of making the rules for that particular group?
No, but you see the way it works.
It's nuanced, right?
You're not really in charge of anything. There's something called the back end that is in charge of everything in WhatsApp. Really, it's what the back end does. Across even Facebook and the likes. It's just the back end, really. So don't take it to heart too much.
So if an admin deletes your message, if they don't like it, you're fine with that?
I mean, at least I know his intention towards me. Simple.
Okay.
I think it's the good old-fashioned way is better. You can ask the erring person in the group to delete their own message.
Right. That's what it used to be.
Better.
Before, you could delete your own message. But now,
it's unilaterally
the admin can take it off and delete it. And
Well, I don't have a problem with it, because I think many individuals abuse the freedom, the latitude that the social media offers, and particularly on WhatsApp. Now, there are most WhatsApp groups are created for a purpose. Right? This is what we're doing here. Maybe it's a club, maybe it's an office WhatsApp. And then people take liberty for granted, and they bring in all kinds of stuff. I belong to a group where some people have made it their main obligation to supply a daily dose of pornography.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and there are some people who don't like it, and the admin will warn all the time. You know, this is a serious platform. Don't bring your perverse inclinations into what is supposed to be serious discourse. So if such administrators are now empowered to delete such materials in line with the community guidelines, I don't have a problem with it.
No,
you may say that you are giving administrators absolute powers, but to the extent that these WhatsApp groups are created for specific purposes, I think people must be taught the lesson to abide by the rules instead of inflicting their own perverse imagination on innocent people like Ruben Abati. Now, to talk about are you abusing me? Are you saying I'm not innocent?
I'm not you can see your halo floating over there.
Innocent.
Very innocent. I'm with you, Doctor.
To talk about Tanzania and Uganda.
Yes.
Okay, both countries, victims of the energy crisis in the world. In both Tanzania and Uganda, the ministries of finance indicated that this is as a result of the global crisis, the demand and supply crisis that the whole world faces. But I thought you had brought them up for a purpose. Maybe look at what they are doing in Tanzania and Uganda, so that maybe Nigeria can know what is happening elsewhere. However, the issue is that Tanzania, Uganda, they are not oil producing countries. Most of the countries where you have high prices of the pump price of oil in Africa, they don't produce oil. Right? It includes Uganda, Mauritania, Zimbabwe, Seychelles, Mauritius. All these countries, they don't produce oil. Nigeria produces oil. In fact, the amount we pay here, our whatever per liter, it's not as high as all those countries that I have mentioned. So, we can't compare Nigeria with what is happening here. But I understand the point that the Uganda Ministry of Finance is making, that if they have to allow subsidies, they will borrow more. And if they borrow, they will impose greater hardship on the people. So it's each country weighing its own, assesses into those realities and trying to walk the fine line about how to protect its economy and ensure economic growth in the face of global adversity.
So I was just thinking out loud before we go. Ghana's got oil fields. They churn out oil. But petrol is still really expensive in Ghana.
Not to our volume.
Yeah, but it's not one of the highest 10 in Africa.
Exactly.
It's not one of the highest 10.
Exactly.
They do one.
But thank you very much,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.